Hello, everyone. Alasdair Gold here with the latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham. There is still no guest. Guest is gallivanting across Europe still. He will be back soon, but instead we have a guest with a small G rather than a big G. It is Lee Wilmot, of course, joining me again. How you doing, Lee?
I'm all right, thank you. This will be the last of us two together, as it were. Guesty is back next week, so normal service is resumed on the podcast and YouTube next week.
Yeah, you'll be back. You'll be back. You're a bit of a floater, to pardon the expression.
I'd like to say I've been called worse, but
you'll be dipping your toe in and out of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham in the coming weeks and months, no doubt.
Well, you are due to have a holiday again soon, aren't you? So
I might be. I cannot confirm or deny that. Yes. So this, as we said on the last pod, was just going to be a little kind of look ahead and discussing anything else that's kind of cropped up in the week. It's been actually a quiet week for Tottenham Hotspur, which is really weird and very unsettling. It means something awful's about to happen, probably.
You mean you haven't got any Daniel Levy stuff for me to discuss today?
No. You can keep your Daniel Levy thoughts to yourself. Just say them around the house to your family. You don't need to vocalize them to us. That's fine. I think the only real thing that came out that was interesting, I think, was the Micky van der Ven's done a couple of interviews. Obviously, he did Ben Haynes from Spurs did a little bit where he drove him around, managed to do a loop and get himself back at the Hotspur way somehow on the A10. And I think he did a little bit with George Sessions from PA as well with some nice answers. Before I kind of delve into some of the things he said, what have you made of Micky van der Ven thus far?
It's early days, isn't it? But I've liked a lot of what I've seen so far. He's very calm and composed on the ball. I said on the last pod, I think that I don't think we've seen very much of his well-voiced pace at the minute. So that's still to come, but hopefully not in some ways, because normally you require that pace when you're out of position, when you're caught upfield too much and looking to get back into position. So in some regards, I hope we don't see too much that pace. But it's weird that that interview came out. I think people have starting to talk about him, starting to recognise his ability. Perhaps that North London derby was a bit of a watershed moment for him, just because I felt like, obviously not everyone watches a lot of Spurs like Spurs fans do, like we do every week. I felt like he's gone under the radar a little bit. He's been quality since he started, and I'm not sure anyone would have expected him to fit in so seamlessly, coming from a different league, and only signed very close to the start of the season and thrown into action essentially by Ange Postecoglou, which is clearly something that Ange is quite happy to do with new signings. I feel like he's gone a little bit under the radar. People weren't really talking about him. And then there was Ian Wright was talking about him on his Wrighty's House podcast, just saying how good he thinks he is. And then this interview comes out with Spurs. And then, as you say, George Sessions with PA. So I think people are going to start to really recognise him now and see what a good defender he is, which might not be a good thing for Spurs, but it just kind of bigs him up and kind of comes across to him, at least, that he's doing a good job and he's doing the right thing.
True. Yeah, I absolutely want him to stay under the radar, just like I did with Destiny Udogie. I just kind of like, they're ours. Don't touch, don't talk about them. Just let them do their thing. Micky van der Ven, exactly what you said there. When you think that he was thrown in that first game, it's just ridiculous. It was straight in, wasn't it, against Brentford? It's just...
He was only signed a week before the season, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he'd had one training session. I'm trying to remember how it worked. I can't remember what Postecoglou said now. It was either 1 or 1.5. And he was just lobbed. Actually, had he even had a training session? A funny feeling he might not have even had that. I can't remember. But it was, he's been superb. And there were the little kind of giving him a lift home bit was quite nice. I think it showed... He's just got that classic Dutch way about him. He's just very straight talking, very to the point. Like I said, I just love that point where it was like, you've done a loop, haven't you? We've come back round. There's the entrance to the training ground. That worked really well. And the fact that he was there that night, that famous night in Ajax, in Amsterdam, that was incredible. So I was there. I could have looked across somewhere and seen a young Micky van der Ven out there. What was that? 4 years ago, 4 and a bit
You
years ago now.
should probably say younger. He's still quite young, to be fair.
He is 22 years old. God, that's terrifying and makes me feel so old. So what do you mean 4 years? He would have been 18 years old, stood watching, because he said he comes from a little village just outside Amsterdam. And he admitted he was a little bit worried when he saw the first two goals in quite quick. First two goals go in quite quickly. He was a little bit concerned. But I never got that sense, actually, from the stadium when we were there that night. I don't think the Ajax fans really, truly believed they were in trouble until that last dramatic kick from Lucas Moura, because they were singing, they were all getting excited about the final whistle coming, and then suddenly silence apart from the brilliant Spurs fans, and then lots of beer raining down on my head and my laptop and all of us press around us. But yeah, that's quite cool to think that he was there as well as a young wannabe kind of big player of the future, I guess, and not even knowing that probably out of the two teams that he was watching, he probably didn't expect it would be Spurs, the one he'd end up playing for.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, he comes across as a good guy as well. I think Guesty got him in the mix zone a couple of weeks ago as well. And he said he was a good talker. And I was just looking through his quotes from George's interview with him. He talked about Romero. It's quite a nice little bit about Romero. He says, I think it naturally happened, our partnership on the pitch, and we felt each other quite fast. But when I came, he was also really nice to me and showed me, here is the kitchen and where you can get this. So he was sitting with me and we talked to it. So I've got to stop there. That quote did not go in the direction I was expecting it to. I did not know that he was going to be talking through kitchen etiquette and where to find the cutlery.
I love that that's the first thing that he thinks about, or the first thing that Romero says, or the first thing that he thinks about when he's thinking about meeting Romero. Here's the kitchen, as if, as a defender, as a big defender, right? This is where you eat your food.
But that actually does tie in with something he said in his the interview did on the little drive around the Spurs training ground back home. Was that he said he felt a really warm welcome, not in just the sense of, hi, this is my name, let's shake my hand. He said everyone was really interested in me, asked loads of questions and stuff. I think Sonny's been very good to him as well. Sonny talks to everyone. I don't know how he has the minutes in the day. He seems to have long chats with every single player. But I thought that was quite cool because Romero, I don't know, you get this sense of him as being this almost like a big old kind of tough guy, don't you? And I think he absolutely dotes on his little boy. His entire Instagram is just his son, essentially, and just loving his son, which is lovely. But you still think of him as, I think, this big tough guy, hard man image. So the first thing he does is kind of showing around his new centre-back partner around the kitchen. I think that's quite cool. And it showed on the pitch. It showed on the pitch. So I'll continue with his quotes. Now I'm not thrown off by the kitchen comment. It was really nice the first couple of days I was there, but also on the pitch, it felt good. Of course, he won the World Cup. I saw him play the whole World Cup, so I know his quality already. I think I know what Cootie's qualities are, and Cootie knows what my qualities are. So we know what to expect from each other. I have his back, and he has my back. He's just an amazing player. And I know when I run in one direction, he's in my back because he's always there. We just feel each other. And of course, it's amazing when you have this as a centre-back duo. Of course, we're shouting to each other, but it's not in a negative way or something. It's always positive. I think I make him maybe more calm and he makes me more aggressive. He'll always be a more aggressive player and me a more calm player, but it fits each other well. Really good quotes, actually. I hadn't kind of read them in full earlier. I just kind of had a glance.
I was going to ask you about that one. The one where he said, I think I make Cootie more calm and I think he makes me a bit more aggressive. I think I really love that. It just shows he knows what Romero's about. Everyone knows what Romero's about, and we perhaps haven't seen that as much of that this year. He's been a lot calmer on the ball, a lot less rash coming out and trying to make challenges, and perhaps it is what Micky van der Ven brings, that kind of Dutch laid back approach to things and the calmness on the ball, and it's clearly working.
This is the interesting thing, kind of just processing that right now. We've always just assumed it was the vice captaincy, which I do think is a very big kind of factor in giving him more responsibility and calming him down. But yeah, maybe it is having someone who is so much more laid back and has that pace to help him out if he ever gets stuck up the pitch. But also, maybe it's having a young player that he's got to look after. Whereas before, Sanchez or Dyer, it was often an older player alongside him. And I wonder whether he then felt, oh, I've got the license just to be me. Whereas now
Yep.
he's kind of got a little bit of extra, responsibility, and it adds into that new leadership side of things. That's really interesting. And also the fact that, to make Van de Ven, I guess, more, I wouldn't say, I suppose aggressive is one style, maybe just be a bit more front foot, I guess, in the way he defends and putting his body suddenly into the way of things. And that was one of the things, funny enough, despite his size, that he would get criticised occasionally for in Germany and the Netherlands, was his heading. So maybe he's now being encouraged, like Romero's bang, he just like sticks his head straight in there. Whether that means he is destroying the person while going through them to head it, he will still get his head to that ball. And I hadn't thought about that. It's a real yin and yang kind of element to it. They do complement each other in different ways. I think I've just seen them more as the balance, the right foot and the left foot, and maybe the pace, and one with, well, I was going to say the skill, but Van de Ven's got a fair bit of skill. But actually, thinking about it, the whole attitude thing is another very interesting point to it. Thank you, Micky, for sticking that into my brain.
The data aspect is what Ange Postecoglou has spoken about, hasn't he? And it was clear when he first came in that he wanted a data-led approach, and perhaps it's a psychological mindset approach as well that he's looked at. We don't know what else goes on behind the scenes. Perhaps he's seen that mindset of Micky van der Ven and thought, you know what, that can help Cristiano Romero out.
Absolutely. And he does say, to be fair, that he says you can only use data to a certain point. Then you've got to look at the human being and decide whether they fit your system, whether they fit. And actually, it's almost like they know what they're doing now.
Yeah.
What's happening? Obviously, yes, he will be up against, not quite up against, well, maybe from a corner or two, up against Virgil van Dijk as well.
Yes, absolutely.
That'll be a little look at a glance at potentially the Netherlands' future as well, because he was called up, but he didn't get any minutes, did he, in his last international appearance? Where do you stand? I know we're dipping slightly into the preview thing. Where do you stand on the whole Virgil van Dijk isn't what he used to be debate?
It certainly feels like that. It feels like he's not the kind of the player that he was before.
He's going to score now.
Yeah, of course he will. Yeah, absolutely, 100% guaranteed. Apologies, everyone. He's still an excellent defender, isn't he? Liverpool are second in the league at the minute. So there's you don't just become a bad player overnight. So yes, I don't think he's quite. I think he was just sensational when he signed £75 million deal. Was just a bargain really for a player that was going to come in and completely dominate Liverpool's backline for 2-3 years. It was just incredible, and I think you're going to have a dip somewhere along the line. I don't think anyone can sustain the levels, the top levels for a long time. I think Salah, you've seen Salah have ups and downs over the last year or so. He's clearly back on it right now this season, which doesn't bode well for us. Yeah, it doesn't bode well for us on Saturday either. But it's difficult to sustain that sort of level for the entirety of your career. And I think it just coincided. It's no coincidence really. It coincided that as Virgil van Dijk took a little bit of a dip, Liverpool took a little bit of a dip. Just shows you the quality of player that he is and how important he is to the team.
Absolutely, yeah. You really can't underestimate how serious injuries affect a player's career as well, and how long it takes to get back to any level of real sharpness and form. And this is the thing, isn't it, with Rodrigo Bentancur? We await to see just how long it's going to take him to get back up to speed, because a lot of people are going to be very excited, I think, at seeing him back. But it's not, well, I say it's not going to be the same Bentancur to begin with, but then we didn't expect him to settle so quickly when he joined. So who knows? He might surprise everyone again. But I think the main thing is just
everyone's looking forward to him coming back, and I'm one of those, because I think he is an outstanding midfielder, and I think he only makes the team better. But then it becomes, well, who misses out essentially if he comes back into the team, and the one that misses out is Pape Sarr, and he has been excellent. Is a young kid, been superb in that midfield, and I just feel like, and you've spoken about it before, Ange Postecoglou really trusts him and is more than happy to have him playing in there, and you can see why. He's a gifted player, obviously. Perhaps that just gives Rodrigo Bentancur a little bit of extra time to work his way back into it, because there's not as much pressure on him to return to the team as there was before.
Great. great shout. Yeah, I agree. I think Bentancur's going to be phenomenal as long as he can get back to where he was in this system. It just, you kind of forget just how good he was on the ball and how good he was at spraying the ball around as well. His passing range was superb, and he developed weirdly in a way because it wasn't something that was in his past so much. He developed into this goal-scoring
Yeah.
midfielder. So as a number 8, he's absolutely going to be perfect. But yeah, Papamat Sarr is going to, they don't call him star boy around the club for nothing. He's going to be, it could be one of the best around if everything develops in the way it's meant to develop in terms of his game and his, just everything about it. He's just, his engine is ridiculous as well. And he's so skillful and he's so mature beyond his years. On the pitch, off the pitch, he does seem like, like a bit of a kid, which is quite funny. You kind of have to remind yourself, these are just young guys at the end of the day. But now Van der Ven, the other little bit to point out in his interview was when he was talking about Van Dijk. Oh, actually, the other thing he did go on about was like he was ranting. He spoke about how what was the exact bit? I've got it here. It was about being an underdog essentially, and that's why he loves the fact that it's a new team. It's a team that everyone's written off because Harry Kane left, but he loves that because his whole career has been proving people wrong. And at was it Volendam where he was pretty much almost let go, and then they changed manager, and the manager who came in was like, why are they about to let him go? He could be brilliant. And then shock horror, within a few games proved himself, got himself a new contract and everything, and then ended up in the Bundesliga as well. Was it Wim Jonk? I'm trying to remember who the manager was.
Yeah, it was Wim Jonk, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was someone quite famous. But when he was talking about Van Dijk as well, he said that his ambition is to be one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League, and I will work hard for it to make it happen. But I've just started, so hopefully I can be there in I don't know how many years. We want to know exactly how many years, Micky. Don't be so vague. No, I think he's going to be class. He already is. He's going to have a few bumps in the road. Every young defender does. There's going to be, like you say, little moments in any player's career where it has a dip. But he's adapted very quickly and very well to what he has to do.
Cristiano Romero seems to be taking those little bad moments away from him, to be fair. Perhaps he's doing it on purpose, the own goal and the penalty.
Yeah, although he did start off, didn't he? Van der Ven deflecting a couple in. Spurs have been very generous, haven't they, this season? It's almost like, we're going to score so many goals against you. I kind of feel like we should give you a couple. It's like, they're not really goals that the other team has scored. Most of them have been kind of deflected things or iffy penalties, which honestly, because after our little discussion about that and the penalty in the last episode, we've had so many people giving us their opinions on that, which is great. But just you could see how many different ways people are looking at it. And there's other people bringing in, which, to be honest, I hadn't noticed at the time, saying that that Maddison was fouled in the build-up as well, but also it may have got a slight deflection on the way as well, which makes it even more of a he had no chance Romero moment. So I found that fascinating. Hopefully we don't have anything controversial against Spurs this weekend. But before we dive into the preview side of this, I should remind everyone that, of course, the Gold Guest Talk Tottenham podcast is sponsored by NordVPN, and you can use this service in a host of different ways to enhance your internet experience. NordVPN is the fastest VPN in the world, and that means there's no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. Something I've used many, many times over the years, long before they came on board with the podcast. So helpful on holidays. It's been helpful on work trips, going places, just being able to kind of get stuff that you'd watch back home, get it wherever you are in the world, despite those pesky restrictions, because you can just get around those by making your device think it's back home in the UK. And it's also really good for security reasons in terms of people trying to nab stuff off of your devices via those public Wi-Fi hotspots. And not only that, but the outlay on the NordVPN subscription is cheaper for you in the long run, and that's because you can purchase streaming services or bookings from other countries at a much cheaper rate. So, for example, you could book a flight from another country, and it could be cheaper than booking it from the UK. So it means you're paying out for Nord, but you're actually saving money overall. There's a whole host of other benefits from signing up to NordVPN, so why not give it a go? You can grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/goldguest to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus 4 additional months for free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So, looking towards this weekend, the visit of a very informed Liverpool to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which I'm hoping will be the noisiest the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium has been in a long, long time. And it's been pretty noisy recently, actually. We've had some really good kind of crowds. I just hope the good feeling is harnessed. What are you expecting from this match?
It's hard
What
to
does your
say.
heart say and what does your head say?
My heart says that I'm expecting. I think you're always expecting a good game. They're always good games between Spurs and Liverpool. So of course it'll be 0-0 now. But yeah, they're more often than not there's goals in them. I think there's more opportunity for goals with Ange Postecoglou at the helm as well. It's just a horrible fixture. Historically, Chelsea used to be the one that was the hoodoo and the curse and that, and it feels like that's kind of been lifted a little bit in the last couple of years. Liverpool is awful. Our record against Liverpool is atrocious. I've got it here. One win for Tottenham in the last 10 years is extraordinary. We've lost 6 of the last 8, I think it is against Liverpool, or 8 of the last 10, it might be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the last 10 we've lost against Liverpool. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, it's a really poor record, but it's one of those that I think back at some of the fixtures and I think, oh, we were unlucky there. And I've seen a video. Someone's posted a video on social media this week, just of all the misses that we've had against Liverpool in the last 5 or 6 years, all the late goals that Liverpool have scored.
Sissoko, when he ran through and Van Dijk was like, "I'm not going to let you pass the Son. You're going to have the shot.
Yeah.
You're going to have the shot." Oh.
Yeah. Dele Alli missing 1-on-1 with Alisson. Steven Bergwijn, 2 chances that one hit the post, one that he just sliced wide. And then late goals everywhere. Even the one, even the draw, the Harry Kane penalty in the 95th minute for the draw. People won't forget, but Harry Kane had the opportunity to effectively win the game with the penalty earlier, which would have put Spurs 2-1 up going into injury time and would have changed the whole complexion of that wonder goal that Salah scored 2 minutes later in injury time. If Kane had put the ball in the net, obviously, to put Spurs 2-1 up, Salah wouldn't necessarily have happened because the passage of play changes. Yeah, that's the Wanyama rocket. Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to an entertaining game. I'm not necessarily looking forward to what the final score is going to be just because of our history with Liverpool. Surely you think it's got to change sometime, but they are in such great form. We're in great form. It'll probably be a draw again.
Well, Ange will tell you the past is the past. Nothing to do with him. As he said the other day, how many of those players actually started the last North London derby? You know, it's a very new look team. That's the only thing I would say, that every game does feel a bit fresh and you don't know what's going to come from it. But I think we do know that they're going to attack, and they're going to attack with a lot of kind of, I mean, look at that side. Even just going back to the last Premier League game, you know, Diaz, who Spurs know very well because they wanted him, Nunes and Salah are all up front. And this is the ridiculous thing, you know, they've lost Mane and Firmino, like the famous front three, and it's like, oh, the front three is still really good.
it's like a 5 now, because you've only mentioned 3 there. You've got Jota and Gakpo as well in that.
Absolutely, yeah. Gakpo was good, wasn't he? I think last night as well.
Yeah.
Again, does that play a part last night? You know, that certainly some of my Arsenal supporting friends felt that Arsenal players started to fade a bit, despite having an easier time in midweek against PSV. They felt they faded a little bit fitness-wise. I mean, Liverpool changed it up a fair bit, didn't they, last night? I don't think it's going to hit them quite as hard, although they had to bring a couple off the bench. Yeah, I'm trying to think where my head's at with this game. I think being at home and the crowd behind them and the mood Spurs are in right now, they're going to have a really good go at it. And I think they hopefully will give their best account of themselves. Much will be, same as we said at Arsenal, really, on how much Liverpool try to break them down up front, in front of Tottenham's defence, in seizing on any mistakes maybe they'll make from trying to pass out the back. Talking of passing out from the back, saw, I'm not going to name where, but I saw on a social media platform, I saw people having a big debate, Spurs fans, about why are Spurs just playing it out from the back? Why can't they just lump it out of danger? And I was kind of like, it was a little bit dispiriting, I'll be honest with you. It was a bit like, have you not listened or watched anything that's been going on in the past couple of months? It was like, I can understand how fans will have seen, like the Arsenal game, like, oh, why are you doing that? Why do you keep playing it? It's like, but if you haven't figured out that's exactly what Tottenham Hotspur are meant to be, I mean, for goodness sake, the motto is to dare is to do.
Yep.
It's like, that's exactly what they're meant to be doing. And I personally, I hate it when it's hoofed up from the back. We saw the one time that was done against Arsenal and it went all the way through to the opposite, to Raya from Vicario's kick. I don't want to see that. I hate it when Spurs. I hated that under Conte and Mourinho when that happened. Essentially turning Kane into like a target man.
Yep.
It was like the utter waste of his abilities.
I as you know, I coach my son's youth football team, so they're under 13s now, and there's been a number of times over the years where some of his teammates have said, "Why aren't we getting the ball quicker up the field quicker? Why don't we let the goalkeeper from the goal kick boot it long?" And I've had to explain to them so many times, like if we're booting it long, not only does it always come straight back at us because no one wants to head the ball, you're kind of missing out an entire defense, an entire midfield if you're trying to boot the ball straight up to the goalkeeper. And I say to them, we're all here to play football. How are you playing football if the only time you're getting the ball is when you're having to tackle the opposition to get it? Why, when we've got the ball to start with, do we not want to play football out from the back, essentially? Why do we not want to pass the ball around and try and score goals that way rather than always having to win it back from the opposition? And yeah, I am actually sorry. I'm going off a complete tangent here. It's not Spurs. Right. Apologies, everyone.
Postacoglu, you go for it.
We had training last night, and I'd watched a Steve McLaren video where he did a session with a group of 14, 16 people, 7 against 7, I think it was in the middle, with a couple of floaters and then 2 on the outside, essentially. And he explained in that session the first 6 passes are crucial because another team is going to press you as much as they can to try and win the ball back straight away. But as soon as you get 6 passes in, that press eases off and you've got more room to play your passes around and then play your football a bit higher up the pitch. And it's so true, really. If you can beat that press, and yes, it is a risky business, and we've seen Spurs run into trouble a few times, but once you beat that press, the football that you can come up with in an attacking sense is just so pleasing on the eye.
Absolutely. Football is as much about using the space as it is using the ball. That's what football is. And I just hopefully the more Postecoglou does this with his team, you absolutely missed the Postacoglu thing I said there because I was really happy with that.
I was in my rant, sorry.
You were mid-rant. Yeah, I think when people realise why they're doing it, little things like why Romero suddenly sometimes will slow down with the ball. He won't just like march out with it or pass it. It's because he wants someone to come towards him. Because the moment that person comes towards him, yeah, it might be a little bit scary for the viewing public, but if he brings him to him and passes it on, suddenly there's space in behind that player. It's very akin to the Dutch style of football, using the space. That was what Cruyff was, and Rinus Michel. Was it Michel's? I was trying to remember how you pronounce his surname. They were all about the space, and that was where total football came from as well. And obviously, fun enough, Postecoglou he and his dad used to watch the Dutch in the World Cup as well, 1974 together. So maybe it all kind of harks back to that as well. I think a lot of
risk and reward, isn't it?
Absolutely risk and reward. So there's going to be more of that this weekend. There's going to be times when Liverpool are kind of invited onto Spurs and we're all going to be like, oh God, Salah's almost there. And we're going to have to see what they do with it, because if they can get around them, then that's the thing. I mean, just if we were to go on the 11 that started against West Ham, if Salah is sucked in towards the Spurs defence, let's say Brennan Johnson, if he's fit enough to play, suddenly he's up against, well, from the weekend, it was Gomez at right back. And that's the kind of matchup you want to see Brennan Johnson in. I don't think, by the sounds of it, Trent Alexander, whether he'll be fit enough for a place on the bench, I don't know. But certainly seemed to be some light training this week. But yeah, it's so key to playing around them, like you say, in those kind of early passes. And I think another big thing clearly is also going to be those, as we say with Johnson, those who are fit and available to play this weekend. It seems like, hopefully, fingers crossed, some positivity. With Maddison, there was certainly positivity around it in the immediate aftermath. Certainly coming from the players' point of view, and certainly what we could see and kind of watching him go around. I don't think he's been that involved in team training, from what I can understand this week. I think it will be a case now of him getting some, even if it's just some light training in ahead of the game. To be honest with Maddison, he's been carrying so many little kind of problems, I think, in the last couple of weeks, little issues with various parts of his body. I think some of them picked up on England duty as well, that I think it is just a case of managing him. And if it is that, he can kind of keep himself ticking over fitness wise, maybe in the gym or something, and then on Saturday morning they just wheel him out there. I mean, Ledley did it every single week for years. I think Maddison's that important. I think you do try to do that. And if it's the case that you hope that England don't call him up, and if they do, don't play him much, maybe he has the international break after the Luton game to try and rest up and recover himself a bit. So fingers crossed, there's a positive kind of vibe around him at the moment. I mean, Postecoglou may come in tomorrow and destroy that in his press conference, but certainly everything we've been hearing seems reasonably positive. And the same with Brennan Johnson. I think he had a precautionary scan in the middle of this week just to kind of check when everything had settled down how things were doing. But it very much, from what I understand, was precautionary. And hopefully with him, it was just a tight hamstring. Whether they don't take the risk and start him, potentially, maybe they put him on the bench. But I'd love to see him in full flight going at that Liverpool defence, especially at home, as long as they're sure that he's not going to tweak anything or pull anything if he does do that. I mean, if he doesn't play, let's say, if Johnson doesn't play, what would you want the front three to be?
If Johnson's not fit, I think I would probably I'll probably go with Manor Solomon on the left-hand side. Sonny's display on Sunday just suggests that I think he should be playing through the middle again until such a time as we think he'd be better off on the left and Richarlison playing through the middle. I'm not sure what. It's harsh to say. I'm not sure what Richarlison brings to it. I'm not sure how.
It's very hard.
Yeah. I don't mean it like that. I'm just trying to. I'm not sure that he makes things too much different to how we want to play. I think if Brennan Johnson comes out, I think I'd much prefer to see Solomon on there and playing Sonny through the middle, just because of what we've seen in the last few weeks. And if we have a game like against Sheffield United where Sonny doesn't do anything, then you've got Richarlison to come off the bench and hopefully change the game, which he's clearly capable of doing. I don't think he won't want to be a substitute and having that impact, being an impact sub, and I think he's better than that, really. But I think just at the minute, it's probably best to keep it as it is. And yeah, Solomon's not done a lot wrong, really, to come out. I don't think he did a lot wrong to come out in favour of Brennan Johnson in the North London derby. Obviously, Ange wanted to throw the young lad in and give him his first taste of a big match, and I thought he did well. And if he is fit, as you say, his pace, I'd love to see that against potentially Joe Gomez and just see what he can get out of him, and that front three just getting up the Liverpool back line essentially.
Has Matip got much pace? I'm trying to remember.
I'm not a massive fan of Matip, if I'm honest.
I'm trying to think.
I don't think he's the greatest defender in the world.
Yeah, well, this is what I'm thinking. It's more in terms of, does Richarlison offer him and Van Dijk more of a traditional threat than Sonny would? Whereas with Sonny, it's going to be a case of bang, like put it through, he's off and he's away kind of thing. I would probably stick with Manor Solomon. I thought Manor Solomon as well worked quite hard in the North London derby when he came on in tracking back. He did a lot of work in his own half as well. And yeah, he's got that skill, I think, to give Gomez a lot of problems as well. Richarlison at the moment, cue him starting at the weekend, but I think at the moment he's kind of got a really good role to be able to play from the bench in terms of being an absolute pain in the backside to teams that are already a little bit knackered or whatever. Yeah.
Well, we
And obviously,
before the North London derby, we both said we'd probably start Richarlison after what happened against Sheffield United, and he didn't
this is
start.
true.
So now we both said he's not going to start. Richarlison will, of course, start against Liverpool.
Yeah, quite possibly. Quite possibly, yeah. We is it, I don't think I was going to say we jinxed them, but it's not really, is it? I suppose we jinxed Richarlison. I guess we could say that.
Yeah,
And that midfield battle, of course, is going to be a biggie with the way Basuma, Madison, and Sarr are playing. I was looking at the yellow cards. I did the Q&A a little bit earlier on football.london, and someone asked about the yellow cards, and I hadn't looked it up actually. Basuma's on 3 already, so he's got about 17 games not to get 2 more. It's like he might struggle with that.
yeah, might do.
Although hopefully he just waits off until Bentancur's back.
Yep.
Although you're probably going to play Højbjerg, aren't you, instead of Basuma? I'd imagine, or
I would have
Skippy.
thought so.
But yeah, it should be a good game. It should be. It's a game where, especially having been in that press conference room when Klopp had a rant about I wouldn't play in that way when Spurs went there and got a draw. That was Conte, wasn't it? Was that under Conte?
Yep.
Yeah. They blend together a little bit. I can't imagine now that he can come to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and his team sit back and hope to break Spurs down on the counter attack, because that would surely, Jurgen, go against everything you said you wouldn't do. So I will be watching very keenly on that. So it should, if he sticks to that, be an end-to-end game. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be hopefully should be I think it's a sellout crowd, absolutely full voiced. Where are you watching it this weekend? You're not by the side of a grass pitch somewhere, are you?
No, I'm not. I will actually be at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this weekend, watching the game live. So yes, it's a bit annoying that I'm not going to be part of the pod next week, actually, isn't it? Having actually gone to the game.
Well, exactly. Maybe we get you on. Maybe we have Gold Guest and Wilmot, because I don't know whether Guest will be back in the country or not, on how much you'll see of the game. So we may have to rely on your extra pair of eyes anyway. We'll see how it goes. But go on then. What's your score prediction?
It'd probably be. I said before the North London derby that I thought it was going to be 2-2, and it turned out to be 2-2. And it's boring, but I think there's probably going to be the same again this weekend. 2-2. It would be nice to sneak it 3-2. I'm going to err on the side of caution and say 2-2. Get out of those 2 games with 2 draws and move on, essentially, because looking at it, if you come away from Arsenal and you come away from Liverpool with your unbeaten record intact, October brings about Luton, Fulham, Crystal Palace, and you start thinking that's 10 games into the season. Then if you pick up maximum points from those 3, then everyone really does start to get excited about Tottenham, don't they?
I'm going for 2-1 for Tottenham. And yes, we get overexcited, start claiming the titles in the bag.
The one thing I was going to ask you actually is I'm looking at the table, obviously. There's 4 teams unbeaten. They're 4 of the top 5. It's Brighton sandwiched in between. It's early days, but do you think they are the best 4 teams in the league at the minute? Man City, Liverpool, Tottenham and Arsenal?
With Brighton. I think Brighton have had such a good start to the season. I think we'll see.
I think the only thing with them is what's happened to Newcastle to start with. They're kind of focused on the Champions League. Brighton are going to be focused on the Europa League. Can they do midweek and weekends?
Absolutely. I just kind of got this real feeling about Spurs, and it's not just based on what we're seeing, but also the fact that they are going to be a bit like the Arsenal of last year and the Leicester and the Chelseas in previous years when they haven't had European football. I know Arsenal had some form of European football, didn't they, last year?
Yeah, Europa League last year.
Yeah, Europa League, that was it. But they were putting out, let's be honest, a very much a mixed team for it, so they could really focus on the Premier League. I just feel like Spurs, it's the classic ridiculousness of Spurs. They've gone from a season where they've been horrendous and finished in 8th place. And genuinely, this season, if they harness all of this positivity with all of the 3 weeks they have in between, they really could do something fantastic. Obviously, it's then about building on whatever they managed to do this season. But yeah, I absolutely would put Spurs up there in that kind of top teams at the moment. Yeah, but it's a case of building on it and steering clear of injuries. There's still a couple of parts of the squad that worry me. It really does. But yeah, so I'm going for 2-1. And then, honestly, when you get to that stage and some of the teams they've played, I think you shove in there that you've played Man U, whatever people think about Man U, but you've played Man U, Arsenal, and Liverpool. If they can come away with either a point or a win, yeah. Honestly, I could get far too carried away. But that's part of being a fan, isn't it? That's
a bit more carried away than you saying that Spurs could finish 5th in the podcast the other week, which I noticed a few people commented, 5th, only 5th.
Yeah, well, I've got to play it cool, haven't I? I'll go for 5th now, and then anything else is a bonus.
Yeah,
5th
absolutely.
would be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I would if someone offered you 5th now, would you take it?
Yeah. It's Champions League football next year, isn't it? And it's that progression under Ange Postecoglou. I don't want to get too carried away. If you said to me in November and we're still unbeaten, would you take 5th now? I might change my mind. But at the minute, it's so early. Yes, there's loads of optimism. Yes, we're all excited about the style of football and the goals we're scoring and the points we're picking up. But yeah, I think I would still absolutely take 5th right now and take Champions League football next year and then build in the transfer window for a bigger squad and see what Ange can do on 2 fronts then next season.
Just 2 fronts?
Well, 2 main fronts.
I want it all. I want everything. All right, I'm opening that question up to everyone. So if you're watching this on YouTube, comment underneath, would you take 5th place right now? Personally, I'd be gutted that I would not be able to watch the rest of the season because I think it's going to be good fun. But would you take 5th now if offered, bearing in mind it's likely to bring a Champions League place? And if you are listening to this over whichever way you're listening, whatever podcast platform you're listening to, chuck us a line on any kind of social media and let us know whether you would take 5th place or not right now. I think it'd be a nice way to judge how excited fans are getting right now, whether they take that or not. Because I think some of them won't. But I think I'm maybe in the camp of taking it. Maybe.
And why not? We said this before, as Ange said, let the fans dream, let them build up those expectations. If the fans have already got that because of the first 6 games of the season, then why not? If fans are already thinking, oh, do you know what, we might be able to be the ones that are closest to Man City this year, why not? I've not seen anything to suggest that we couldn't be the team to challenge Man City this year. I'm not going to bring Thanos into it again, but it's I can't see anyone else winning the league apart from them. I don't think Spurs are ready to do that yet. It would be unbelievable if we were to be right up there of the last couple of games of the season. But yeah, I don't see any reason why we can't be the best of the rest this year from what I've seen so far.
Maybe. We'll see. I still think it's a very young squad, and I think they'll have a little sticky period, and it's about how they kind of respond to that. And also the fans respond to that as well.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other thing. Right. I think we better wrap it up there because it was only going to be a little quick preview one. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. Hopefully, Maddison and Johnson are both in a good enough place or place to start. If not, maybe one of them on the bench. But we'll get more news from the press conference tomorrow. Keep an eye on football.london because, as usual, we'll be shoving everything up there. We'll have a live blog from the press conference, a transcript, and also the late quotes, the embargo quotes that people are still trying to understand why that still happens. I always get people going, like, why is there 10 quotes? What does that actually mean? It's just an old traditional newspaper way of, I think, mainly trying to bury quotes in the middle of the night, hoping that people won't see them until they read the papers the next day. But the modern world doesn't really work like that anymore. There's this thing called the internet and a thing called a world where different time zones exist. So it's not 10 everywhere. But it's fine. We'll still put them out there as long as that's the time it's set to be. So keep an eye on all of that tomorrow. And of course, on Saturday, we'll be at the game, which I am really looking forward to. It'll be a cracking one. So, right, we're going to head off now. Thanks as always, Lee, for being such good company. And Guesty will return. I wonder if he'll have like some kind of European accent. It feels like he's been away forever. Guesty with a northern
European accent.
There's a thought.
Yep.
Yeah, and I guess he'll be back, and I can be lazy again and not have to do all the hosting stuff. I prefer just being the guy in the background, guest who just
It's
asking
nice.
the odd question. Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Right, yeah, we're going to head off now. Enjoy the rest of your days ahead of the game, and we will be back next week to discuss and analyse and dissect exactly what went on against Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool team. To grab a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest and you can receive an extra 4 months for free. And there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the episode description box below.